Board of Zoning Appeals, March 31st, 2015, regular meeting at 5:30. First order is call meeting to order, which we just did, and determine a quorum. We're all here, so we do have a quorum. First, we must approve the minutes from July 30th, 2013 from the regular meeting. Somehow that got past us, so has everybody had a chance to glance over that?
Chair, I'll make a motion to accept as submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Second round is to approve the minutes from February 24th, 2015, the regular meeting. Has everyone had a chance to glance over those?
Make a motion to accept as submitted, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. We're going to take care of some old business now. For number one, we have a sign variance to allow an extra wall sign requested by Caleb Gibbs and Chris Fitchell, Fitchell's Pharmacy, property located at 405 Old Nashville Highway, tax map 018H, Group B, parcel 4.00. It's 1 acre. It's zone C3, Neighborhood Commercial Zoning District. Parcels owned by John William French. Kristen, can you give us your staff report, please?
Certainly, Chairman. We briefly reviewed this last month. The applicants are opening a small pharmacy at the remodeled structure at the intersection of Old Nashville Highway and Jefferson Pike. It is 405 Old Nashville Highway, as you can see on the screen. They are requesting a sign variance to allow for a second wall sign on the pharmacy's exterior due to their location at a busy intersection with multiple road frontages. The parcel is Zone C3, Neighborhood Service Commercial, and the standards for signs do allow for, in commercial and industrial zones, you're allowed to have 2 signs per lot, one being a wall sign with a maximum square footage of 100. Per 8080D of the ordinance covering sign variances, people may apply for an extra wall, monument, or pole sign if the Board of Zoning Appeals feels that there's a need for some additional signage. And a couple of the reasonings behind granting a sign variance is if the zoning lot is unusually shaped or exhibits unusual topography, or if the sign is located on a lot with multiple road frontages. As you can see on the screen above, the parcel is it's 1 acre, it's oddly shaped, it has mixed topography, it slopes from the intersection back towards the rear of the residential. And you do have, again, there are 3, you've got Centennial Drive, you've got Old Nashville, and you've got Jefferson. So they are asking for an additional wall sign so that people coming from both the Smyrna side and the Laverne side can see the signage. And they did state that they are not planning on utilizing a pole sign on the lot. I have not had a single phone call for this variance request, and the sign's been up for quite some time now.
Okay. Is the applicant here? Please
He is,
step up
yes.
to the podium, please. Raise your right hand, please. Be sworn in. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. State your name and address for the record.
Chris Fichtel. My home address is 5041 Briarwood Drive, Nashville, Tennessee, 37211.
You got anything to add that would help us determine?
The frontage on Old Nashville's just so close to the road. People going up and down Old Nashville, we just want to have a sign that'll show, just on that side facing the gas station, have a sign there, probably like a 10 by 10 sign that's kind of like the logo was.
Okay. Does any board members have any questions for the applicant?
I do have a question. So the ordinance allows, it said 2 of the signs per lot, one of them a wall sign with a maximum 100 square feet. So what size are both of them going to be?
On the front of the building will be, it's going to be letters that light up that say Fichtel's Pharmacy. And then the one on the side is, it doesn't have to be 10 by 10, but something 10 by 10-ish over there that has the logo and like the phone number on it.
So the one front in Old Nashville Highway, what's the square footage of that sign?
I don't know the exact square footage. It's just it's like those letters on a, so it'll have like, F and a lit up F and a lit up I, and So I'm not sure the square footage, but it would be
Yeah, my question
probably
is,
2 by,
let me ask another phrase. Is it less than 100 square feet?
yes, definitely.
And on the side facing Old National Highway, what is the size of that sign?
10 by 10 is the plan.
So they're both
Yeah.
below the 100 square feet?
Yes.
Or 100 square feet or below? The one facing Old National Highway, is how that can be lit? I mean, is it going to be backlit and
It's-
shine out, or what's the plan for that?
It's going to be light up letters. So the letters will all be lit up, so it'll have
Individually.
individually lit letters.
Like internally illuminated?
Yeah, internally illuminated, both signs, yes. They won't have like light shining on them, if that was the question.
Any other questions? If there's no questions, can I get a motion to approve or disapprove?
I'll make a motion to approve the applicant as submitted.
Okay, do I have a second? Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Granted. Thank you. Second order of old business is a special exemption to allow retail sales in an I-2 district requested by Jude Laporte. I hope I pronounced that right. Property located between 210 and 216 Waldron Road, tax map 015, parcel 27.00. It's 1.09 acres. I-2, heavy industrial zoning district, parcels owned by Tennessee Signs and Landmark Realty Services Corporation. Kristen, your staff report, please.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. We did look at this last month as well briefly, and again, Mr. Laporte would like to, he's asking for a special exception here to do retail sales in the I-2 district. That is allowed as a special exception in the I-2 district under item 3 of 5054.2, where any commercial use allowed in C1 through C4 is allowed, and automobile sales, rental, and delivery is one of those allowable uses, which describes what he is wanting to do here. Again, it is zone I-2, heavy industrial, and the length of Waldron Road, as we know, is a mix of both I-2 and C2 land uses. We've got several existing automotive dealerships slightly to the south of Bridgestone. We've also got a number of other transportation-related land uses, both industrial and commercial, in the immediate vicinity of the parcel, including Conard Logistics, which is directly south. We've got Mid-America Distributors just directly north. Therefore, the type of commercial use would fit in with the fabric of the surrounding land uses. It would not pose any kind of detriment. You do have an enclosed site plan, it's a rough site plan showing the probable layout should the special exception be granted. Of course, if you do grant it, they would have to go to the to the Planning Commission for actual site plan approval, which will cover all of the detailed provisions for site plan approval by the Planning Commission. It is in the overlay district for Waldron Road. The final sales office building, according to the applicant, will be fronted with the required mixture of brick, stone, or stucco. You can see the proposed ingress and egress, just 24-foot entry point. You've got required customer parking and sales display area, the circulation, sidewalks, area for detention, landscaping, required yards. And my last comment was that with the land use being less restrictive than industrial, you wouldn't require any kind of additional buffer yard between the two surrounding uses. And the sign's been on there now for a good month, and I have not actually received one phone call.
Is the applicant here?
He is.
Would you please step to the podium, please?
I'm Ernie Lenning with Landmark Realty
State you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I do.
Thank you. State your name and address, please.
I'm Ernie Lenning, and my business address is 4205 Hillsborough Road, Nashville 37215.
Okay. And you, sir?
I'm Jude Laporte, 2516 Treetop Drive, Antioch, Tennessee.
Okay. I believe we had some questions from last month, so any board members oppose or not oppose the questioning? I believe we had some questions.
I did. Are you aware of the setbacks required in this zoning?
Yes, sir.
Because it is a very narrow lot.
Correct.
The driveway, 24-foot asphalt on Walden Road, it just seems to me, knowing Walden Road and what we've been doing Walden Road, just a very narrow lot to do what you're trying to do in totality. That's my concern. The visibility that you're going to have there is going to be very minimal at the best, as far as I'm concerned. And I just have a real concern of the trying to put this type of building and this business in this location.
I have a question for the building official. Randy, do you know what the entrance width requirements are? Is it 24? Yeah, for this commercial business?
Not right off the top of my head, Mr. Chairman, I do not know.
That is also a state highway, so the state's probably going to regulate that, aren't they?
It's actually not a state highway, sir.
Not a state highway.
And actually, in commercial and industrial districts, you can have up to a 40-foot drive, but it's not. There is no requirement that. We basically want it to be 12. We want each lane to be 12 feet. So 24 would actually be adequate. It would be tight, but it would be adequate.
Okay. So you're saying 24 foot would be a minimum for this one?
I would consider it to be a minimum, yes,
Okay.
because you really do need to have 2 drive lanes that are 12 feet wide each. So.
Another question would be, have we issued a grading permit for this lot? I noticed today it's been scraped and there's equipment sitting on it.
I wish I'd known you needed that beforehand. I would have provided. I don't know if there was I don't issue the grading permits.
Okay.
It's done through stormwater.
Okay.
You have a grading permit?
I guess another comment would be, the back of this lot is a water quality area. I guess I'm assuming it's a PUD for detention ponds or something like that. Of course, all that drainage would have to be engineered. So.
Sure.
Okay.
Now Kevin Estes provided this plan
Okay.
as our engineer.
The front display area, the 60 by 50, what will actually be displayed? Vehicles?
Is that right, Jude? There'll be vehicles in this front area? Yes.
Vehicles? And by the city standards, if this was approved, would they have enough minimal parking spaces?
It appears that they have enough room to provide the required parking, and potentially some extra, actually, so. But just remember also that this is a rough site plan,
Right.
so.
And we plan on submitting much more detail.
More detailed, sure.
Planning.
Of course, we do have the handicap provisions. Any other questions from the board?
Yes. Is there something showing the ditch that runs east to west? Is that just being filled in? Or?
It'll remain, I'm not sure that it'll be filled in or covered, but it'll be handled appropriately, and it is a drainage ditch. Before, in the previous, we had talked to Conard, the tenant next door, and they were looking at buying this, and so we got approval from TDEC that it confirmed that it was not water of the state, that it was just simply a drainage ditch. And we have that letter. So Landmark has owned this property for about 30 years, and we really haven't worked real hard at selling it, but at the same time, it was the last piece of property we had. But as you can see, it is not a site that lends itself to an I-2 use. It lends itself more to a C2 use, just because of, just as you pointed out, the narrowness of the lot. But if it's narrow for a C2, it's certainly too narrow for an I-2 use. So, with a 30-foot tall building. So if this land is going to be used for anything, I think it was going to be more appropriate to be used for C2.
Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to see is to be a little bit more definitive. I understand it's got to go to Planning Commission on this, but at the moment, with what we've been presented and with lots of other questions we have, with more engineering need to be done, I just have some concerns of having a special exception first and then doing the planning commission.
Do I have a motion to defer?
Well, you understand what I'm trying to drive at here? Is that at the moment it would appear you're trying to get a round peg into a square hole because you have lots of issues with the lot already. And if we give you a special exception for this and then you move forward with the planning commission and there are other issues, it's going to give you some problems.
Well, we were responded on from the guidance of the city of Laverne that said that we'll provide you with enough information now to allow us to move forward so that we can spend more money and provide a much more detailed plan to present to the planning commission. If we can't get approval through the planning commission, I thought that was the level that we really provided the detail, not necessarily here. We thought we had provided enough information to explain generally what our intent was, and then we'd come back with all of our stormwater calculations, make sure that everything fit to a T to what the planning commission is going to require.
Okay.
Okay, with that said, do I have a motion to approve or deny as submitted?
What I would like to do, and this is for the attorney, just a question for the attorney, can we put a timeline on this, attorney, just so we can stipulate it so it doesn't drag on this condition?
Sure. Be all right with us.
What would be a fair timeframe for you?
What are you looking for?
Well, detailed drawings are submitted to the planning commission, so once that goes in...
No, I know that. What timeframe would be reasonable from your
From
perspective?
your perspective, you obviously have a window for the planning commission, so probably a 60-day window will give you enough time to do what you need to do, submit to the planning commission and move forward from there.
I think that'd be reasonable.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve with conditional comments of the 60 days to the planning commission?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Graham. Okay, our order of new business is a special exception to allow a recycling facility, dismantling parts yard, auto repair, and auto sales business. It's requested by Don Hubert, Recycling Partners LLC, formerly known as Gray's Recycling. Property is located at 151 Jefferson Pike, tax map 018K, Group B, parcel 25.01. It's 14.2 acres. It's zoned I-3, Special Use Zoning District. Parcels owned by Recycling Partners LLP. Kristen, we have a staff report.
Certainly, I will do my best to go through the history of this situation. We have the applicant Don Hubert here of Recycling Partners LLP. He is the recent purchaser of the property and the existing business operations located at 151 Jefferson Pike, which was formerly known as Gray's Recycling. The 4 businesses that have been operating on this property, they're all related. They include automobile dismantling and salvaged parts yard, recycling collection and storage facility, used automobile sales, and an associated mechanic repair shop. Since he acquired the site, I guess early last year, he's been working to clean up the site visually, as well as consolidate and streamline the processes there. As part of that, he made an application to the Planning Commission last summer for a job trailer to sit roughly right here, which was going to replace the dilapidated structure that was sitting here. And at that time, the previous administration had brought up the fact that there were some compliance issues with the site. So essentially, the previous owner had been operating the 4 businesses under a grandfathering provision stemming back from the 50s, and not all of the entirety of the parcel that you see there is covered under the grandfathering provision. And that is because, per Article 6.020B of the zoning ordinance, non-conforming or grandfathered uses may continue but are restricted to the area occupied by such use as the effective date of the ordinance. So essentially, anything that had been operating in the 50s as a non-conforming grandfathered use it's only allowed to stay in that rough area. So, let me just give you a little bit of background. The Dave's Auto Center was originally on the 6.4 original acres of land, which sat roughly right here. Mr. Glenn Gray took over and established Gray's Auto in 1981, received title in 85, went on to purchase surrounding tracts of land in the 90s for the purpose of eventually expanding the business. In 1988, he gave the business over to his son, Ashley Gray, who then went ahead and combined all 4 parcels into 25.01, which you see up there. And he went ahead, well, he combined them, first of all, for tax purposes, and then he had them rezoned to I-3 per the city's request, because the 4 properties were actually zoned a mixture of industrial, agriculture, and a couple of residential zones. He did combine them into one parcel, 2501, and then in 2005, he did rezone the 14.2 acres, the entirety, to I-3, which is the zoning classification that allows for salvage dismantling operations, which is the primary use that's been on the site since the 50s. Now, in I-3, no land use is automatically permitted. You have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals to get special exception. Now, Mr. Gray did not do that at the time. He just continued to operate under the grandfathering provision. So when he put a new building on in 2009, roughly, it was still located on the original tract. So the new owner, Mr. Hubert, who just purchased the property and has put a lot of investment and hopes to be here in Laverne as a good corporate partner, just wants to zero out the property and have it be in compliance with the current zoning regulations. It is zoned I-3, which is correct, but they did not get the special exception for the businesses. And by granting a special exception, it would essentially make the land use that's there now be allowed on all 14.2 acres, as opposed to 6.4 up at the front, or whatever you can. It's hard to find detailed maps that show the formal boundary lines of what was operating at what time. So he's here for a special exception to officially allow the businesses that have been operating as grandfathered for the last roughly 60 years. He's hoping to make some changes in the future, and should he do so, whether that's paving, putting up a new building, doing anything with drainage, he'll have to do a site plan, go to the planning commission, and he'll be able to do that without any trouble should he get the special exception that will just cover the entire property. He is here to speak, and there has been a Board of Zoning Appeals sign on the property now, probably on and off for a good year, and I haven't actually received a single phone call.
Okay. Thank you, Kristen. Would the applicant please step forward?
I guess I'll start.
Raise your right hand, please. Swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Tell me God.
Okay, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Lance Wagner. I'm with Civil Engineering Services, working with Recycling Partners. My address is 2107 Riverwood Drive, Nashville, Tennessee, 37216.
You, sir?
Don Hubert. My address is 490 Fortress Boulevard, Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Okay, thank you. One question I have, what would be your hours of operation?
Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. Saturday, 8 to 1. That's the gate operation. I mean, generally, we're, in terms of noise and anything like noise or truck traffic or anything like that.
Right, that's what I'm concerned with the, apparently there were some residential homes on,
We do have, as you can see here, this is the parcel right there. We've got this R4, which is mobile home park. That's the Rainbow Acres, I guess, dwelling area. And then sort of apartments, and then you've got some R2 here that came in, I believe, after this had been established. And then over here you've got, it's zoned agriculture, but you can see that it's clearly not agriculture. It's essentially the neighbors are doing a more intense version of what Recycling Partners appears to be doing. So,
Okay. I just want to make sure.
and then, I'm sorry, and
we
then,
haven't received any calls on the business in the past.
not that I'm aware of. I know that there was a drainage complaint in 2008 that stormwater went out and dealt with. And then directly south would be Smyrna town limits. So
Okay, so the main part of the business is scrap metal, dismantling. Okay.
Primarily,
Are you
it's
gonna-
primarily scrap metal at this point. We've moved away from, we don't do salvage parts.
Okay,
Um,
so you'll
So
have
we
like
don't have,
a,
I mean, Kristen did a site visit today, we have, I mean, when that picture was taken, there was
Mhm.
about 700 cars on the facility, we have about 125 now. And that's more or less our standing inventory that gets rotated through and processed.
is there a car crusher on site?
There's a shear logger baler on site, which
Okay.
would fall into that, yeah.
Like I said, I don't want to have homeowners calling the city in the middle of the night, because it does happen
About-
occasionally
With noise.
Sounds.
with the noise, yes. How much lighting is on this area?
The lighting that was there, I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 of those
You don't
NES
plan on adding any more?
spotlights, I'm sorry?
You don't plan on adding any more?
No, sir.
Okay.
The applicant.
Please step, when you speak toward the
Oh, I'm
microphone.
sorry. Yeah, I
okay?
apologize.
So to pick
Sorry.
you up.
I'm trying to make sure you can see.
I've got a few questions, Mr. Chairman. And this has been an ongoing project for many years. And I just have a couple of comments that I'd like to bring to your attention. You may already know. Number one is the city did blacktop Jefferson Pike recently. Every time it rains, you have water running off your property, both the main entrance and the entrance you just closed, onto the street. When the vehicles come in and out there, the street is an absolute mess. Number one. Number two is you have far too many signs on all your buildings for the zoning requirements that I'm aware of. If you're consolidating all this down, I think there need to be some give and take between us and the city to get where you need to be, but get where we need to be to improve the entranceways from your property onto the cities. I appreciate the work you've done on the front of the property on the street, because I follow it, I drive past it numerous times a day. But when it does rain, both entrances do run off, because it's not blacktop, and the vehicle message is an absolute mess. The signs is the other big issue. Do you really need that sign on the right as you come over the bridge? You replace the fence, and the painted phone number was on there, and you replace the sign, which is far greater than the excess of any city signage that we have. And is there a real need to have that big phone number?
fence?
The sign on the fence.
Right.
So
I mean-
the square footage is too big.
Too big. I mean, if you're already coming over from Millsboro Road,
Right.
coming to your facility.
I know what you're,
Do you really want to have the phone number put there? I mean,
it was that, everything was there. There's
Right.
less, I mean, there's less signage now than there was. So when we purchased the property, my assumption was, and I received assurances on that everything that was there was permitted. I'm perfectly willing to make adjustments since then, but there's actually less signs now than there was a year ago. The sign on the fence is smaller than the sign that was there before. It's smaller text. It's a lighter font. Do I need it there? No, but my point. And with respect to the drainage, I mean, I've made a number of efforts to reach out to the city about changing that second culvert. I've volunteered the idea of of losing that entrance altogether and making that a culvert, and then therefore catching all the water that comes off the hill that comes out in the road. And I've attempted to do that to be a good neighbor to Frankie, to the businesses across the street that it's impacted. And so we've started that process. It's just we got caught up in the commitment that I made to the city back last year of making sure that that's why we hired the firm to get the operational site plan done. That was never done in the past. And so it's all part of the process. You know, we've tried to always be as responsive to the city as we possibly can. So, you know, I'll take any other sign down. The problem with that fence sign is then I've got to have another $4,000 in fence work done to replace that sign, I'll do it if that's the requirement.
Let me just, before you start the work, there was 13 signs. I drive past it 3 or 4 times a day. The sign that you took down, the size of the numbers may be the same, but the actual size of your sign with the black around the outside is now bigger than what it originally was. That's just my comment. Number 2 is the signs that you had on numerous buildings were somewhat all different because different names, different building numbers. But now if you're consolidating down, you're asking the city to get it all under one envelope. I would like to see you come under one envelope with the city to get things done prior to us giving you what you need. Let's get organised and be acceptable to both us and then move forward for you too. The new building you put on, I mentioned it back in 2006. The colour was a strange choice when you got blue buildings and you put a brown one on there. Just a real strange choice. But
Which one?
that you knew the new
Job Taylor?
Yeah.
Oh, it's gray because I wanted it to be a neutral color.
Okay. So I asked a question back in 06 what the colour was going to be, and I'm going to ask the question now. We know. The point being is there's 3 or 4 other issues dealing with the property that obviously we discussed and you're aware of, and I would like to see those all resolved prior to you going any further.
So could we look at what those are, kind of an itemized list? Because when we started this process, we hadn't seen an itemized list of those issues we could tackle. The drainage we kind of looked into, but we actually need to get the zoning corrected before we can apply and get permits for the drainage, because we'll be working in the city right away, working on the site. So we were kind of looking to get this done first so that we could start getting some of those things addressed.
So, I know Carl's not here, so is that correct? I mean, you say you want to get the special zoning done first and then do the drainage? We can't get the drainage done first?
Honestly, I think it would be best to get the special exception before you go to planning commission. Just zero out the property and then have them, I mean, they are working to remedy the situation. I think they're afraid of doing anything if the board isn't going to give them the special exception to continue operating. So, I mean, I know it's a give and take between the board and the applicant, and I think both people can be satisfied. I think it would be better to get the special exception first, personally,
right,
just to zero it out.
So moving forward, that you heard the other applicant. I want to be consistent. The issues that I have, just so you know, is obviously the rainwater running off the property on both entrances onto Jefferson Pike. That incurs dirt, dust, and all that goes with it. Number 1. Number 2, the signage needs to be brought in compliance with the present sign ordinance that we have.
Okay.
And at the moment, you have too many, and one's certainly too big. The third is that we ensure, the Chairman's comments, that the lighting meets the criteria of what we have with the surrounding neighbourhood. So those are my 3 that I want to put forward. And then my second question will be, is like the other applicant, what will be your timing before you bring a plat to the Planning Commission?
All right. A plat addressing, one of our concerns are a plat addressing property.
Both the 3 items I just mentioned and the property itself in concerns with the Planning Commission. Let me explain.
Right.
What I'm trying to drive at is your time limit that you can work with, and I know that you can put the plat in with the city to start the process. That's the window I'll give you for the special exception. If you don't come back with that, then you don't get it. That's what I'm trying to drive at.
And by plat, you mean site plan to go
Right.
to the planning
Yeah,
commission?
at least submit. I mean, obviously when the submission date goes in, it's up to the Planning Commission then to handle the issues, but at least submit.
Yes.
The previous applicant agreed to 60 days. Is that acceptable to you?
Let me ask. So a signage package.
Please bring yourself closer to the microphone, please.
We hadn't discussed, we hadn't talked about a signage package, which I see where you're coming from. I see the benefit of that. We have not considered that yet amongst ourselves. So 60 days, I believe, would be enough time, but We also have business partners that are involved in this too, that we can't speak for everybody at once. We can't commit to a lot of money at once.
But if we start with 60 days and then if you got down to whatever, you come back to this for another X days.
Okay.
I want to cap it. I don't want it being open-ended.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to be agreed with. That way, we're working towards what you want, and the city's going to get between the BOSA and the Planning Commission what they need to get you done as you finally want to get done. That's what I'm trying to work towards.
So 60 days, and we can come back, and that, if something happens, we can come back within that 60 days and ask for another 60-day extension.
For an extension, we won't say how many days, but certainly, we want to see progress. If you're not doing anything, if you're not applying yourself to become a part of the Laverne citizens, then I would say no, in my opinion.
Okay.
But at the moment, we're just trying to reach out and work with you.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the signage is an issue. The signage I can take. The signage I don't. I can come and bring that into compliance based on whatever feedback I get from Kristen on what we need to do in terms of the signage. The wastewater is a bigger issue because you're talking about a piece of property that lies in the city right away. That there's a lot more to that than just reconfiguring some signage, which I'd be happy to do. I'm hesitant to make a commitment to something like that without doing my due diligence on what that's going to entail. So the signage, I'm perfectly willing to make the adjustments on that within the next 30 days.
What about the blacktop?
That
The
goes back.
entrances. I mean, that's a part of your runoff, but I'm trying to come to a timeline that you can work with, but also gives the city still control of what's going to happen, what you plan to do.
So
What blacktop?
I'm referring to both entrances because when it rains, the water runs. You have two issues when it rains. One is the water runs off onto the street. Number one, that's drainage. Number two is your vehicles and your customers' vehicles run off your gravel top and then take that dirt onto the streets, including riprap and rocks that cause damage to other vehicles. And that needs to be stopped.
Maybe with track in, track out.
very much so. I'm actually trying to, in my mind, see how we distinguish what comes off of our property and what comes off the neighbor's property in this scenario. Because the entrance is sort of shared and sort of a combined entrance. If we could get that.
Well, I understand, but let me just say, the city did blacktop onto your neighbouring property a little bit on that side of the bridge. I did notice that, but my concern is when it rains and I drive down there, there's riprap in the middle of the street, and that gives me some concerns.
So I believe in 60 days we come up with some ideas that we can go through and either have a plan in order or come back and ask for an extension at that time. So I believe 60 days is enough time to make that happen.
Okay, so that will be soon upon either a submittal to the Planning Commission in a timely manner,
Okay.
or two, come back to this board to lay out how far you got so far today and ask for another extension if required.
Okay.
Mr. Owner, is that acceptable to you?
Yeah.
I want to make sure. Yeah, I mean you have time to think. I want to be fair.
What? No,
Yeah.
I mean it's a bigger can of worms than we're. Because you're talking about me having to put another $25,000 in paving for something that I think can be more easily solved with reconfiguring the ditches that are in front of the building, which are in the city's right away.
I understand that, and if you work with staff on that, I'm just saying,
Okay.
work with staff. I'm just saying, giving you my ideas. I drive past every day of what's going on, but
Right.
work with the staff, and obviously this board and other boards go with their recommendations.
Okay.
We can meet with Kyle.
Yeah, and I reached out to Kyle. I know I've got an email of attempts I've made to reach out to Kyle about what we could do about that. I understand what I mean, the main entrance is sort of a simple solution because I'd like to pave up past the scale anyway.
Sure.
The other one is the more serious issue. That's where the water pools between our building and Frankie's, and that's the one that, I've got videos of it, of the water that runs over that culvert. And it just seems to me, without a civil engineering degree, that if you remove the culvert, it would redirect the water where I think was ideally designed to go. I don't know whether, I'm assuming that way back that I would doubt that the Grays ever got a permit for that third entrance. I actually think that when I read it, you're only supposed to have two anyway.
Depending on how much frontage you have, yeah.
Right. So, my concern is that, by putting something on the minutes and committing to something without having and I'm a minority owner, so without communicating that with, the guys that are backing me, it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. So I want to put that on the record, I guess.
Okay. But you did put the application in, and you come to us, this board, and ask for it. We're trying to work it out with you. We're just here trying to work with you. That's what we're trying to do.
Yep.
And we appreciate that, we really do.
And we want to be good neighbors for sure, and I think we've tried to demonstrate that from day one. It's been a little of an odd situation because of, we were sort of led to believe that it was an operating, permitting business when actually the I's and the T's had never been dotted and crossed prior to us coming here. So.
But this is the first step to try and get it resolved for your side of the fence, pardon the pun, and the city side of the fence.
Okay.
And we appreciate you working with us on that, so 60 days would be fine with us, it'd be good.
On the recycling collection, what are your recyclables?
Metallic scrap.
Okay.
And some white paper, some e-waste. Primarily, I would say 95% of the business is metallic scrap, so generally shred steel.
We've had this problem before with these type of businesses with rodents and vermin adjacent to the homeowners, the property owners. I think we need to have something in place. Do you have a exterminating company that you've hired to maintain the vermin and the rodents? Because that issue will come up. I can almost guarantee it.
In my mind, I don't want to have any standing inventory. So the inventory, that's the 100 cars that are there, I wish they weren't there. I can't process them fast enough. But I don't think we're going to have more than 50 to 100 cars of standing inventory. And again, I can't speak for the 2,000 cars that are stacked next door to me.
I understand.
But I mean, we can certainly, I know we're going to look at, getting into the spring, I'm going to look at some natural herbicidal companies to keep the grass down. And if we need to look at something in terms of extermination, we can do that as well.
The recycling part, how often is that picked up and taken somewhere else? Is it a daily or?
Scheduling.
It's technically, we try to have everything out of there within 3 days. So the scrap comes in. The reason for purchasing the shear logger baler was so that the material didn't have to sit on the ground. We bring the material in from, say, just as an example, Frankie across the street, we get their stainless kegs that they are taking out of service. They come over to us, we run them through the baler, so we take all the air out of them, create them into a movable commodity. And so that generally happens within 3 days.
Okay, as long as we don't have anything standing and.
There's no piles, there's no.
I mean, like I said, we've had it before with just the smell. You know.
And it's almost all clean. I mean, we're mostly 90% of our business at this point is commercial customers, and the only thing that could theoretically smell would be we get cans from Rutherford County and places like that, but they're never there for more than a couple days.
Okay. Any more questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, if I could interject real quick, just to make sure that the record's clear. There's been a lot of discussion. So is my understanding correct that there's a motion on the table, not a motion rather, but a proposal that this be granted subject to the conditions been described, or rather is it a deferral of these proceedings simply by agreement of both the applicant and the board, such that we return in 60 days to revisit the issue and any new plans or what have you that the applicant would like to submit for the board's consideration? Because I think it may matter depending on what the board wants to do.
I think the way I understood it from Graham was.
Well, no, what I'm saying is you've got to do this first, special exception first, and that's what they're looking at.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So the way it's going to be motion, and let me just do it slowly so I understand. I'll make a motion to accept the special exception as submitted pursuant to the applicant supplying a site plan to the city within 60 days to include appropriate or signage in accordance with the ordinance, appropriate water runoff drainage, and blacktop services on the entrance to all three. If they're all, whatever gate's open, whatever gate is there, there's a gate there, needs to be handled appropriately with blacktop. If you take the gate out, fair enough. That make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So I have a motion to approve with conditions. 4 conditions: the entrance, signs, drainage, and the 60-day time period.
Make a motion with accept the condition.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Granted. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
All right, there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.